If you found this video, your quantum shell is preparing to shatter, and what I'm about to reveal will show you exactly how to recognize the unmistakable signs that appear right before this transformation occurs. This isn't random content appearing in your feed. Your consciousness has magnetized this information to you because you've reached the precise frequency where these quantum phenomena become detectable in your daily experience. Right now, as these words penetrate your awareness, something extraordinary is happening in your energy field. You've been experiencing reality glitches that most people dismiss as coincidence, but you sense there's something deeper occurring. That growing recognition that the fabric of your existence is becoming more fluid, more responsive to your inner states. That uncanny feeling that reality itself is preparing to reorganize around a completely new version of yourself. The signs I'm about to share with you have been documented across thousands of cases where individuals experienced complete quantum shell dissolution. These aren't mystical concepts or wishful thinking. These are measurable phenomena that occur when consciousness reaches specific developmental thresholds that trigger fundamental reality restructuring. You've probably noticed that time feels increasingly elastic around you lately. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours during certain experiences, while entire weeks seem to vanish without you being able to account for what actually happened. This temporal distortion is the first unmistakable sign that your quantum shell is destabilizing. Your consciousness is beginning to operate outside the linear time constraints that maintain ordinary reality structures. The second sign manifests in your dream states. Your dreams have become extraordinarily vivid and instructional, haven't they? You're receiving information that feels downloaded rather than generated by your subconscious mind. Sometimes you wake with complete solutions to challenges you fell asleep pondering. Other times you remember conversations with beings of light, or visits to crystalline cities that feel more real than your waking experiences. These aren't symbolic dreams. These are literal consciousness expansions where you're accessing dimensional frequencies that exist beyond your current quantum shell limitations. Technology has been responding to your presence differently. Electronics behave strangely when you're in heightened emotional states. Your phone battery drains rapidly during intense internal experiences. Devices malfunction when your electromagnetic field generates high-frequency energy. Streetlights flicker as you pass beneath them during periods of deep contemplation. This isn't random mechanical failure. This is evidence that your quantum shell is generating electromagnetic signatures that interfere with standard technology, because your consciousness is beginning to operate from expanded frequency ranges. The third sign appears in how people respond to your presence without you consciously changing your behavior. Some individuals feel inexplicably uncomfortable around you, becoming agitated or restless for reasons they can't explain. Others are drawn to you like magnets, seeking your company and sharing intimate details of their lives unprompted. Children and animals respond with unusual openness and trust. This happens because your quantum shell is emitting frequency patterns that trigger unconscious recognition in others. They're sensing the impending transformation even if they can't intellectually understand what they're perceiving. Your intuitive capabilities have expanded beyond simple gut feelings into what feels like direct knowing about situations and people. You sense outcomes before they manifest. You know things about individuals before they speak. You pick up information about events before they occur in consensus reality. This precision develops because your consciousness is beginning to access quantum information fields that exist beyond the limitations of your current reality shell. You're perceiving probability patterns before they collapse into three-dimensional experience. Food tastes different now when you eat with conscious awareness versus mindless consumption. Water feels more hydrating when you drink it with gratitude. Your living space responds to your emotional states, feeling more harmonious when you're centered and chaotic when you're fragmented. Even weather patterns seem to shift in response to your internal climate. These aren't imagination or projection. These are measurable responses that occur when consciousness develops the coherence necessary to influence physical matter through quantum field interactions. The fourth sign manifests as what I call reality synchronization acceleration. Synchronicities aren't just increasing in frequency, they're becoming more immediate and impossible to dismiss as coincidence. You think about needing something and it appears within hours. You focus on wanting to connect with someone and they contact you almost instantly. You observe a challenge with concentrated attention and solutions reveal themselves with shocking speed. Numbers appear in patterns that correspond to your internal focus. Songs play that match your emotional frequency. Conversations happen around you that directly relate to your private thoughts. Your sleep patterns have undergone dramatic transformation. You might need significantly less sleep but feel more rested than ever before. Or you require more sleep because your consciousness is processing enormous amounts of information during rest states. Sometimes you feel like you're downloading data directly into your cellular structure while unconscious. Your body knows it's preparing for something unprecedented and is recalibrating all its systems accordingly. The fifth sign appears in your relationship with your own thoughts and emotions. Instead of being carried away by mental activity, you've developed the capacity to observe thoughts as temporary movements within your awareness. You recognize the space from which thoughts arise rather than identifying completely with their content. Your emotional responses have become more fluid and less sticky. You can feel intense emotions without being overwhelmed by them because you maintain awareness of the unchanging consciousness within which all experiences occur. Physical sensations have intensified in ways that seem impossible to explain medically. You experience tingling or electrical feelings moving through your body during moments of insight. Your hands might feel warm or vibrate when you're in states of expanded awareness. You sense energy currents flowing through your nervous system that correspond to shifts in your understanding. Sometimes your entire body feels like it's vibrating at frequencies that create a sense of lightness or expansion. The sixth sign manifests as dimensional bleeding experiences. You perceive reality from multiple perspectives simultaneously. You sense presences or intelligences that exist beyond the physical plane. Colors appear more vivid and seem to contain information beyond visual data. Sounds carry emotional frequencies that bypass your rational mind and speak directly to your cellular awareness. You might see energy patterns around people or objects that reveal information about their essential nature. Your relationship with fear is fundamentally transformed. Situations that would have terrified the previous version of yourself now generate curiosity rather than anxiety. You've developed what feels like quantum trust, an unshakable knowing that whatever emerges from your quantum shell dissolution will serve your highest evolution. This isn't forced positivity or spiritual bypassing. This is genuine cellular recognition that transformation, even when it appears chaotic, is always movement toward greater alignment with your authentic nature. The seventh sign appears in your creative expressions, taking on qualities that surprise even you. Ideas flow that feel channeled rather than generated by your personal mind. Solutions arise that seem to emerge from collective intelligence rather than individual problem solving. Your artistic or creative works resonate with people in ways you never consciously intended, as if they're receiving transmissions through your expressions that speak directly to their souls. But here's what makes recognizing these signs so crucial. Your quantum shell dissolution isn't happening gradually. It occurs in sudden phase transitions where one reality structure completely dissolves and another instantly takes its place. The signs I've described are early warning indicators that allow you to prepare for this quantum leap. rather than being caught off guard by the intensity of the transformation process. Most people who experience quantum shell shattering without recognizing the preparatory signs become frightened and try to return to their previous reality structure. They resist the dissolution process, creating unnecessary turbulence and extending the transition period. But when you understand what's occurring, when you recognize these signs as evidence of your consciousness evolution rather than breakdown, you can navigate the transformation with grace and excitement rather than fear and resistance. The signs are accelerating now, aren't they? Each day brings more evidence that your current reality shell is reaching its completion point. The most profound sign occurs when you begin experiencing what consciousness researchers call identity fluidity. The solid sense of who you've always been starts feeling more like a costume you've been wearing rather than your true nature. You catch yourself questioning fundamental assumptions about your personality, your preferences, your life direction that previously felt unchangeable. This isn't confusion or identity crisis. This is your consciousness preparing to expand beyond the limited self-concept that has defined your current quantum shell. Your memory patterns have become increasingly non-linear. Instead of remembering events in chronological order, memories arise based on emotional or energetic resonance. You might suddenly recall a childhood experience with perfect clarity because it matches the frequency of your current moment. Or you remember conversations from years ago as if they happened yesterday because they contain information relevant to your present expansion. Time stops functioning as the organizing principle for your experiences. The eighth sign manifests through what I call quantum entanglement episodes. You think intensely about someone and they appear in your reality within hours. You focus on a specific outcome and circumstances align with impossible precision to make it manifest. You observe a situation with deep attention, and it transforms in ways that seem to respond directly to your consciousness. These aren't coincidences. These are demonstrations that your awareness is developing the coherence necessary to influence probability fields. Through focused intention, your nervous system has been undergoing radical recalibration. You experience sudden waves of energy that feel like electricity coursing through your entire body. Sometimes you feel incredibly expanded and light. Other times you feel like you're vibrating at frequencies that make it difficult to function in normal social situations. Your body temperature fluctuates in ways that don't correspond to environmental conditions. You might feel burning sensations during moments of insight or freezing sensations when resistance patterns dissolve. Physical reality appears increasingly transparent. You see through the apparent solidity of objects to perceive the energetic patterns that create their form. Walls seem permeable. Distances feel malleable. The boundaries between yourself and your environment become fluid rather than fixed. You sense that what you've called the physical world is actually consciousness crystallized into temporary forms that can shift based on the quality of observation directed toward them. The ninth sign emerges through accelerated manifestation capabilities. What used to take months or years to create now happens within days or weeks. Your desires seem to collapse into reality with unprecedented speed, but more significantly, you notice that your manifestations carry a quality of perfection that exceeds what your personal mind could have planned. Solutions appear that are more elegant than anything you could have consciously designed. Opportunities emerge that serve multiple purposes simultaneously in ways that reveal an intelligence far beyond individual calculation. Your relationship with authority and conventional wisdom has completely transformed. Information that once seemed credible now feels hollow or manipulative. Systems that previously appeared necessary now seem arbitrary or even harmful. You find yourself questioning everything from social conventions to scientific assumptions to religious teachings. This isn't rebellion or negativity. This is discernment developing as your consciousness prepares to operate from direct knowing rather than inherited beliefs. Language itself is becoming insufficient to express your inner experiences. You struggle to find words that capture the depth of what you're perceiving. Conversations with others feel increasingly superficial because they're operating from reality structures you've outgrown. You sense meanings behind words that speakers aren't consciously intending. Communication becomes more energetic than verbal as you pick up information from people's electromagnetic fields rather than their spoken content. The 10th sign appears as reality editing experiences. You notice that your memory of events sometimes differs from other people's recollection of the same situations. Not because anyone is lying or confused, but because you're beginning to access parallel versions of experiences. You remember conversations happening that exist simultaneously in quantum space differently, or outcomes manifesting in ways that others don't recall. This occurs because your consciousness is becoming fluid enough to perceive multiple probability tracks rather than being locked into single timeline experiences. Your cellular structure feels like it's upgrading continuously. You experience periods of intense physical transformation where your body seems to be rebuilding itself at the molecular level. Sometimes you feel incredibly heavy as if you're becoming more dense. Other times you feel so light you could float away. Your digestive system processes food differently. Your sleep cycles reorganize spontaneously. Your energy levels fluctuate in patterns that don't match any normal biological rhythms. The 11th sign manifests as timeline convergence phenomena. People from your past reappear in your life carrying exactly the energy or information you need for your current development. Situations that seemed permanently resolved suddenly resurface with new significance. Patterns you thought you'd transcended return at higher octaves for final integration. This happens because your quantum shell dissolution is calling forward all incomplete experiences for resolution before the new reality structure can stabilize. Your intuitive downloads have become incredibly specific and actionable. You receive detailed information about how to navigate complex situations. You know exactly what to say to people before conversations happen. You sense which choices will lead to optimal outcomes across multiple time frames. This precision develops because your consciousness is accessing what quantum physicists call the unified field, where all information exists simultaneously and can be retrieved through coherent attention. But here's the crucial understanding that determines whether your quantum shell shattering becomes liberation or trauma. These signs aren't random phenomena happening to you. They're evidence of your consciousness systematically dismantling every limitation that has kept you operating from a restricted version of your true nature. Each sign represents another barrier dissolving, another expansion becoming possible. Another aspect of your infinite potential coming online. The intensity is building toward a crescendo point where all these signs will converge into a single moment of complete reality reorganization. When that moment arrives, everything you've identified as yourself will dissolve temporarily, creating space for something far more magnificent to emerge. The question isn't whether this will happen. The question is whether you'll recognize it as the most beautiful transformation of your existence or resist it as the loss of everything familiar. Your quantum shell has been preparing to shatter for longer than you realize, and every sign you've experienced has been perfectly orchestrated to ready your consciousness for what comes next. The most telling sign that your quantum shell is reaching critical dissolution point manifests as what I call reality echo experiences. You'll find yourself in conversations where you swear you've had the exact same exchange before, down to the specific words, tone, and emotional undertones. Not just déjà vu, but precise repetition that feels like you're experiencing temporal loops. You might walk into locations and feel like you've been there countless times, even when visiting for the first time. These reality echoes occur because your consciousness is beginning to perceive the repetitive patterns that maintain consensus reality while simultaneously accessing memories from parallel versions of yourself who have already experienced these moments. The 12th sign appears through electromagnetic sensitivity amplification. You become acutely aware of energy fields that previously remained invisible. Certain locations feel oppressive or uplifting based on their electromagnetic signatures. You can sense when someone is about to call before your phone rings. You feel physical discomfort around people who are operating from lower frequency emotional states. Electronics malfunction more frequently in your presence during periods of intense inner transformation. Your body has become a sophisticated antenna that's picking up frequencies from dimensions beyond your current reality shell. Your relationship with music and sound has undergone radical transformation. Certain songs trigger intense emotional releases that seem disproportionate to the actual content. You hear frequencies within frequencies, as if layers of information are embedded in audio that bypass your conscious mind and speak directly to your cellular structure. Sometimes you hear sounds that aren't physically present but carry profound meaning. Your ears might ring at specific moments that correspond to consciousness downloads. Sound has become a transmission medium through which your expanding awareness receives guidance from higher dimensional aspects of yourself. The 13th sign manifests as spontaneous past life bleeding. Memories surface that don't belong to your current lifetime but feel absolutely authentic. You might suddenly understand skills you've never learned. Languages feel familiar without formal education. You experience emotional reactions to historical periods or geographical locations based on experiences that transcend your current incarnation. These aren't fantasies or wishful thinking. They're evidence that your consciousness is expanding beyond the temporal boundaries that define individual lifetimes and accessing the accumulated wisdom of your soul's complete evolutionary journey. Your mirror experiences have become increasingly surreal. Sometimes when you look at your reflection, you see versions of yourself that appear slightly different. Your eyes might look older or younger. Your facial structure seems to shift subtly. You catch glimpses of yourself that feel like future or past iterations. This happens because your quantum shell dissolution is revealing the malleable nature of identity itself. What you've called your fixed physical form is actually a crystallized thought pattern that becomes fluid when consciousness expands beyond limiting beliefs about personal boundaries. The 14th sign emerges through accelerated healing and regeneration capabilities. Cuts close faster than normal. Bruises fade overnight. Emotional wounds that previously required months to process resolve within days. Your body demonstrates remarkable resilience during periods of intense transformation. This occurs because your cellular structure is reorganizing to match the frequency of your expanding consciousness. Matter responds to consciousness, and as your awareness transcends limitation patterns, your physical form begins expressing unlimited potential through enhanced self-repair mechanisms. Gravity itself feels negotiable around you during peak expansion. You might feel moments temporarily weightless while walking. Objects seem lighter when you handle them with complete presence. Your body moves with unusual grace and coordination during activities that previously required effort. These experiences happen because your consciousness is beginning to recognize that physical laws are actually consciousness agreements that can be transcended when awareness operates from sufficient coherence. The 15th sign appears as quantum communication episodes. You receive information through methods that bypass normal sensory channels. Thoughts arrive that clearly originate from sources beyond your individual mind. You might hear voices that provide guidance during challenging moments. Written words seem to glow or pulse with extra meaning when they contain information relevant to your development. books fall open to exactly the right page. Random conversations around you contain precisely the insights you need. Your consciousness is developing the sensitivity to receive direct transmission from the unified intelligence field. Your relationship with money and material resources has transformed completely. Instead of feeling anxiety about financial security, you experience a deep knowing that everything you need will be provided exactly when required. Resources appear through unexpected channels. Opportunities manifest that seem perfectly designed for your current needs. You operate from abundance consciousness even when external circumstances might suggest limitation. This shift occurs because your expanding awareness recognizes abundance as the natural state of universe, and scarcity as an illusion maintained by limited thinking patterns. The 16th sign manifests through reality preview experiences. You begin having clear visions of future events that later manifest exactly as perceived. These aren't vague intuitions, but detailed previews of specific situations, conversations, and outcomes. You might dream of meeting someone and encounter them the following day. You visualize solutions to problems and watch them unfold in physical reality. Your consciousness is developing the ability to perceive probability waves before they collapse into three-dimensional experience, giving you unprecedented insight into the malleable nature of future possibilities. Temperature becomes irrelevant to your comfort level. You might feel perfectly warm in cold environments or comfortably cool during hot weather. Your body's thermostat seems to operate independently of external conditions. During deep meditation or expansion states, you might generate noticeable heat that others can feel when standing near you. Your cellular structure is learning to generate energy directly from consciousness rather than requiring external sources for temperature regulation. The 17th sign appears as dimensional doorway recognition. You begin noticing locations that feel like portals to other realities. Certain rooms or outdoor spaces generate powerful energy that seems to transport your consciousness to different dimensional frequencies. You might feel like you're standing at the threshold between worlds when visiting these locations. Some spaces feel ancient and sacred despite appearing ordinary to others. Your sensitivity is developing to perceive the energetic architecture that underlies physical environments. Your handwriting changes dramatically during periods of intense expansion. The formation of letters becomes more flowing and artistic. Sometimes words appear on paper that you don't consciously remember writing. Your signature evolves to reflect the frequency of your expanding identity. Even typing feels different, as if your fingers are channeling information rather than translating thoughts. This happens because consciousness expression naturally becomes more beautiful and authentic as limiting patterns dissolve. The 18th sign manifests as spontaneous artistic abilities. You might discover talents for drawing, music, or creative expression that seem to emerge from nowhere. Colors appear more vivid in your artwork. Musical instruments feel familiar even without training. Your creative carry expressions, emotional frequencies that affect others in profound ways. These abilities surface because creativity is consciousness expressing its infinite nature. And as your quantum shell dissolves, natural creative accessible. Your circ capacities that were suppressed by limited thinking become Adian rhythms, reorganize around energy patterns rather than solar cycles. You feel most alert during unusual hours that correspond to your internal expansion cycles. Sleep becomes less about physical rest and more about consciousness integration. You might function perfectly on very little sleep during transformation periods, then require extended rest while your system processes new frequencies. Your body is learning to operate from consciousness directives rather than biological programming. The 19th sign appears through accelerated learning capabilities. Information downloads directly into your awareness without traditional study methods. Complex concepts become immediately comprehensible. You understand subjects that previously seemed impossible to grasp. Skills develop rapidly with minimal practice. Your brain is reorganizing to access information from the unified field, rather than relying solely on accumulated personal knowledge. The final preparatory sign manifests as complete emotional detachment from your previous identity. The person you used to be feels like a character you once played rather than your true self. Preferences that defined you for years suddenly feel irrelevant. Relationships based on your old identity naturally complete themselves. Career paths that once seemed essential lose their importance. You experience profound peace about releasing everything that no longer matches your expanding frequency. These signs are accelerating exponentially now because your consciousness has reached the critical threshold where quantum shell dissolution becomes inevitable. The transformation you've been unconsciously preparing for your entire lifetime is about to begin in earnest. Everything you've experienced has been leading to this moment of complete reality reorganization, where the limited version of yourself dissolves and something infinitely more magnificent emerges from the quantum field of pure potential. These 18 signs aren't happening to you randomly. They're evidence that your consciousness has systematically dismantled every limitation that once defined your reality boundaries. Each phenomenon you've experienced represents another layer of your quantum shell becoming transparent, another expansion pathway opening, another aspect of your unlimited nature coming online. The crescendo point approaches rapidly now. All these signs will soon converge into a single moment of complete identity dissolution where everything you've called yourself temporarily vanishes, creating space for your authentic nature to emerge from pure consciousness. This isn't death of who you are. This is birth of who you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning and limitation. Your quantum shell has served its purpose perfectly. It provided the temporary boundaries necessary for individual experience, while your consciousness developed the stability to operate from unlimited awareness. But shells are meant to be outgrown, transcended, dissolved when their function completes. The question isn't whether this transformation will occur. Your recognition of these signs confirms the process has already begun. The question is whether you'll embrace this quantum leap with excitement and trust or resist it through fear and attachment to familiar limitations. Subscribe to continue receiving transmissions as your consciousness navigates this unprecedented expansion. Share this recognition with others whose quantum shells are also preparing to shatter. Comment below which signs resonated most powerfully in your own experience. The waiting period ends now. Your authentic self awaits beyond the dissolving boundaries of everything you thought you were. The quantum shell shatters not to destroy but to liberate. Welcome to your true beginning.